Thank you so much, everybody. Welcome to our Partner Connect web series edition 5. Today's topic is wealth creation through financial planning. My name is Vikas Ved, and I head the franchisee channel of Prabhudas Liladhar. I am joined with by our speaker today is Mr. Vivek Rege. He is our partner and he's been into the financial planning and wealth management business for more than 2 decades. I welcome him wholeheartedly, and I think that Mr. Rege, if you could introduce yourself a bit, because I think that the accolades which I know, to start with, that you have been an award winner globally. You deal with you deal with clients across the globe. You're also on the board for these investment advisors. So tell us a bit about that. So please tell us about your profile and also take us through this platform. This session is attended by our partners and my team members across India. And as you can see, the numbers are going on and on. So, friends, whatever questions you have, you can always put them in the chat box. And after Mr. Rege's done his presentation, we will have a dedicated question answer session. So, Mr. Rege, all to you.
Thank you so much, Vikas. Thank you so much, Prabhudas Liladhar, Vikas, Sandeep, for giving me an opportunity to speak on this platform. I think it's an honor for me to speak on this platform, especially because I share a very long relationship with Prabhudas Liladhar since my career started, actually. So, I mean, it's always an honor to come back and share with the fraternity, in terms of what, I have been doing and, overall impact which we could make in the lives of our clients, as well as impact which we continue to make in the fraternity as well. So just to give you a brief background about me, I have done my chartered accountancy. I cleared my inter-CA. Post that, this was back in 2000, 1999, 2000. Post that, I wanted to start something which is more forward-looking. I wasn't too sure about doing the auditing piece of the work normally. So I started at a very, very humble level in terms of not even having a single client in 2003. And from that point of time, one thing was very clear as an ethos, which I had, and the philosophy I had was to kind of create an impact. Okay, an impact has to be so powerful is that people should be able to relate and remember and come back in terms of acknowledging the impact, in the lives which we have created. So one of the things which I did going forward was to start understanding the advisory framework a little more better. Of course, I took a few certifications. I took my CFP certification back in 2006. Followed with a postgraduate diploma in business management, and then I cleared my CFA level 1 from US. My desire to learn more was always there. It's even today as we speak. And my desire to have a positive impact on the client was there in 2003, that I believe it has just grown more and more and more deeper, because now kind of when I look back, I kind of understand in terms of how the things have evolved, how reflective I was in thinking, and maybe taking this ahead, in the right direction. One of the things which I still cherish is terms of the financial planning case study which we had submitted. This was the Global Awards, which usually is held in the US every year. In 2018, we won in Chicago, and in 2019, we won in Minneapolis. Both case studies were very powerful case studies which we had solved. We had definitely made an impact in somebody's life. And this award we had won from the Asia Pacific region, because there is a Europe region and there is a US and Canada region. But when you understand the global context and when you start talking with people at a global level, I think a lot of things became very clear, is that this word financial planning is extremely powerful, but sometimes it is not well understood in terms of what it really means and what we need to do. And I can share my experience about what I understand and what we do, and probably, you know, there will be some takeaways from you from the session. Some things will be a repeat for sure, because you all come from a background where you will kind of understand what I'm trying to convey, but at the same time probably I'll hit a kind of some deeper levels to convey this message. And uh, so so let me I mean, this is my brief introduction about what we have done. We are based in Mumbai. We have a 8-member team who works with us very closely. All are passionate people who understands and believe in the cause of making an impact. And I think this is where I think the power of togetherness comes in when we are dealing with our clients also. So that's a long and short of me. Of course, I was invited to head the board for ARIA, which is an association of registered investment advisors in India. We took a SEBI license in 2013 for investment advisors. So we charge a fee for planning, definitely. It's a fee-based practice completely now. We have, spoken with SEBI at various points of time, including the executive director of SEBI, Mrs. Madhabi Buch, and the entire top team of SEBI at various points of time. Since I'm in the part of the board, we also help in understanding the regulations to the fraternity, as well as going back to SEBI to make them understand of what really is the ground level reality, and kind of bridge the gap between the two, which is the practice and the regulation. And sometimes we have seen that the regulation is sometimes ahead of the practice, and more often we have to kind of catch up with the regulation as such. And after 2013, when we took a license, we had a sea change in terms of what we can do, and the depth of understanding in terms of the entire practice framework. Okay, and I would always call it a practice. It's not a business for us. Business comes with a different set of ingredients. Practice comes with a separate set of ingredients. Practice is a very, very professional professional activity what we do, right? And business definitely professional, but it has its own kind of differentiation points when we call a business. So it's a practice. It's a practice to make impact on people's financial lives. Definitely, as we speak, we also I was invited as a jury panel on the Money Today, which is the Business Today awards. For 2021 Financial Services Awards. And being invited is always kind of a good to have a situation, to kind of enjoy this today as we speak. So this is the long and short of me. Okay, so without taking too much time on this, let me start with this topic of wealth creation through financial planning. And as I said, I think Vikas and I have been talking, and this whole subject is very, very close to my heart in terms of what we have seen, what we have done, what we have changed, and what impact we are kind of making in the life. And I would like to share with you a few very important things which will help you to understand how does the wealth actually starts creating through the financial planning mode. So let me move to the next slide. So we are going to actually talk about wealth creation, and we are going to revisit this entire thing, right? Because we'll kind of need to revisit the entire definition of what a wealth creation means. Often we know that wealth creation has to do with compounding. It's a compounding effect, right? And that's how we decide asset classes, and we invest money, and we try to look at opportunities, and there are various ways you can exploit a situation and create wealth. That is what is the surface level of wealth creation. That's what happens at the surface level, that what we see around. We talk about it and we probably brag about it in terms of how good decisions or etc. we have taken. But there is a lot of underlying thing which we never are able to kind of see in this entire process. So I'm going to take you through that, which we call as a 9-stage, process. Okay, and when you read it, you might be familiar with it, but I'll just get a little bit deeper on these entire 9 parts for you to kind of understand where I'm really coming from and what is the thought process which is going on in our mind, and what we see out in the market. It definitely makes an impact. There is no doubt about it. So the first is, I think we need to understand that wealth creation itself is an ongoing outcome. It is not a one-time outcome. It is not making wealth one time, right? It is about a wealth which is getting created at various points of time, but it's an ongoing process which requires time, attention, discipline, method. You may probably call out for these names, but these are something which happens as an ingredient essentially, and the wealth creation becomes more an outcome, and it's a kind of an ongoing activity. And when I say ongoing, we don't want a roller coaster ride, right? We don't want wealth creating event, wealth destructing event, again wealth creating event, wealth destructing event. Let me give you an example. I mean, we saw this entire piece of COVID happening, right? Economy starting, stopping, starting, stopping. It is not funny. It is absolutely not funny to kind of run through these situations. Today, Europe is going through this situation exactly, starting, stopping, starting, stopping. So it is something which doesn't, you don't really enjoy that outcome, right? You enjoy stability. You enjoy a certain level of certainty, right? And in an uncertain environment, how you create kind of create a certainty is something which has to do with planning, because planning will give you that kind of certainty, a framework, a foundation, which will help you to be absolutely focused on what you're doing, because there is very little you can do with things outside. What happens with the US Dow Jones, what happens with S&P 500, what happens with oil, what happens with gold, what happens with Indian small cap, mid cap, all these are somewhere outside our locus of control. Right? What is in our locus of control, or जो हमारे पास control है, that control is essentially the financial planning foundation piece which we need. Okay, that's some framework or some kind of methodology which we need, and that methodology is actually going to be a powerful driver going ahead in terms of wealth creation. And therefore, we say that wealth creation is not only creation, it has 2 or 3 stages in terms of nurturing and growth, right? We often focus on growth only, but that necessarily doesn't come risk-free. It comes with a certain level of risk. Some risks you can judge properly, some risks you may not be able to judge properly, leading to a swift wealth creation, sometimes a swift wealth destruction. And you kind of get into that mode, what we essentially call as a start, stop, and you don't reach anywhere in life. It becomes very, very difficult. And when I say you, it is the clients, right? So clients who don't have a conditioned mind, and I'm coming to the third ingredient, are people who often run behind everything and anything they see. It's like a small child who runs behind toys, right? If you put one toy and the other toy and the fourth toy and the sixth toy, the child keeps moving around, and it is very finicky behavior, right? And that's exactly what some people do, and they find it to be fashionable, that I move from one asset to the other and from one asset to the other. And in the pursuit, you are basically not having essentially a conditioned mind, which actually is going to create, nurture, and grow wealth. Let me give you an example. There are so many cases around us where you see some sudden wealth, right? Sudden wealth. Look at sportsmen, okay, who get qualified in, let's say, IPL. The amount of money which comes to them, it's a sudden wealth. They have never ever staying in a 1-bedroom hall kitchen flat, qualifying in an IPL, having bank account worth crores of rupees. It's not easy. It's absolutely not easy. to even digest that, because you just cannot accept the fact that you have this much of money in the bank and you are having an unconditioned mind. Look at people who win lotteries. Look at people who have properties unlocked. So let's say a property in Bombay, and I have actually real case which I will share it with you. Unlocking a large value in property sometimes also creates a lot of anxiety because you have never seen that kind of money. There are so many people I would know that they keep waiting at the chemist shop to take discounts, who might have properties worth 30 and 40 crores in a locality, old properties, no maintenance, nothing. And all of a sudden they get money because some redevelopment happens. But it's very difficult because they are not conditioned. Their mind is still that mind which they have been continuing, going to the chemist shop, waiting in the line, asking for discount. Entire rewiring your mind is something which is important to create wealth. The wealth is created in the mind. It is not created out through only actions. And therefore, we see so many people who create sudden wealth at times also destruct wealth suddenly, right? Because there, and we have a lot of stories around. So there are lot many stories which says that the mind, since the mind was not conditioned, okay, luck favored them, they got immense amount of money. But look again what happens when they don't have a conditioned mind and they end up somewhere differently. Look at what happens with, if I may put a name, of Vijay Mallya, right? Not a conditioned mind, created wealth, destructed wealth. I mean, this kind of ingredients, if they are missing, you kind of create major blunders in the entire process. Okay. And even for that matter, startups, right? Startups, people make a lot of money and suddenly they don't know what to do about it. And they take decisions and ultimately they get stuck into something, not making sustainable wealth. So it's just lost. All the effort is just lost. So what you essentially need is definitely a conditioned mind, and there are techniques to make a conditioned mind, right? There are different ways to condition a mind. But yes, you have to have, the client should have a time. The client should also understand that there is a requirement for him to condition a mind, that you are working, that the mind is not sufficiently conditioned to nurture and kind of sustain wealth. You may create wealth because of some things what you do, but nurturing and sustaining wealth sometimes becomes very difficult. A good behavior, a methodical and a scientific approach can only happen through a planning process. A planning process gives you a framework in which you start asking questions, you are asking, collecting the data, you are asking some things in terms of the life stage around you, the family unit in which you are, okay, whether this family is double income, one dependent, is it single income, two dependents, is it single income, three dependents, correct? Is it double income, five dependents? Is it double income, no dependents? There are different life units or family units we call as, right? There are people also, now this is typically told about a family, right? But there are, let's say, women, example, who may have decided permanently single for life, right? They will want to live single for life. They don't want to marry or anything or get into the traditional framework of a family unit, right? Live-in relationships, right? Another new thing or a buzzword which is coming up. Now there are different family units, different life stages, different complexity, right? There are families with Down syndrome childs. There are families where there is a single parent, okay, either the parent has expired or divorced, and there could be a remarriage, and it can be as complex as possible. Ultimately, what you need as a framework is a complete process which puts all of these life stages into a very methodical way and a very scientific approach to guide the particular client towards a desired behavior. What we want is a desired behavior. And a desired behavior comes through a process. It doesn't come through some pep talk. And once you run through a process, which is the financial planning process, it basically leads to a certain positive outcome and an action. What we also have seen in my career is that there are a lot of behavior disorders, right? Perfect recipe for wealth destruction, perfect blind spot. Okay, you just don't know that this is what I am. The way I'm spending money, the way I upgrade my lifestyle, and the way I decide. So let me give you a single example, and probably it will be clear to you. For example, I met a person who probably was working on a petrol pump. Okay, his father had expired, having a very large property in Bombay, in Sivri, and this boy was working on a petrol pump filling petrol. There was family dispute, so the property was locked. Father expired. He had no education. He was working in a petrol pump. Somehow the resolution happened and the wealth unlocked. Okay, he must have got about 25 crores on his family unit, right? This boy who was uneducated, working on a petrol pump, getting 25 crores in the bank account, and he used to call me very often in terms of, आज क्या अच्छा लग रहा है, आज हम क्या करें, आज हम किस में डालें, okay? And I tried to explain him, boss, this is not the way you can function. This is not the way you can. And this was some 10 years back. Today, he's not in a great position because he has, over a period of time, taken decisions which really didn't gel with him. He didn't understand the decision. It's just that he became an HNI overnight. Banks were behind him. Wealth management outfits were behind him. He ended up doing something, destructed wealth in the process. So ultimately what happens is that if you don't have a conditioned mind, this boy couldn't understand how to really digest that kind of wealth, what to do. He made various decisions, large ticket decisions, didn't work well sometimes, lost money in the process. So what happens here is that if there is no process, and this is where I think you can make or break, is that if you cannot understand your own behavior and you are your own enemy, and if you cannot see your own enemy here within you, it becomes very difficult for you to control the actions. You end up doing something and destructing capital. And these behavior disorders are very much evident. So when we are discussing with the clients, we make sure that these are surfaced to the client in terms of, yeah, this is something which we see, you cannot see. And that is the reason why you have these issues around. Okay. And probably maybe family might be seeing, and maybe it is very difficult for family to convey this to the person. Correct. But we independently can definitely convey to the person that definitely we see this disorder. We'll have to correct the disorder, and there is a method to correct the disorder, but you have to. So therefore, when the financial planning process is put into place, you are actually putting a framework around to make sure those disorders are minimized. See, you cannot eliminate disorders, but you can minimize. If you cannot do something because of the structure you put in, the disorders automatically start kind of minimizing, and there is the right behavior which starts coming out. And only through planning process it can be done very successfully. Coming to the sixth point of risk tolerance. So all of this, okay, if I'm talking with you, if I'm discussing with you, all that is my judgment about you. Ultimately, I have to put a tool which puts you in a slot. These slots are 7 risk groups. Whether you are staying in Nanded or whether you are staying in Chennai, or whether you are staying in Paris or you are staying in Hong Kong, it doesn't matter. You are the same human being, having the same behavior pattern, having the same risk group. So when you are giving this kind of a tool, which we call as a financial DNA, we basically understand that what is your tolerance. If your tolerance is X, and if we are able to put a 50 equity, 50 debt allocation, you definitely cannot have a 90% equity, 10 debt allocation. It's just not going to work. And I'll tell you why. We have seen people who do this, who kind of override sometimes, and they have come back to me saying that, no, this was a mistake, we shouldn't have done it. You know what happens is that it is not the loss which is also an issue. It is also profit which is an issue. When you make a disproportionate profit in an investment, right? Let's say 100 rupees invested or $100 invested, you make $140. 40% return in a year is a sub super normal return in terms of the outcome. What therefore happens is that that particular client feels jittery about that whether, so the calls will be like this, that okay, ये 140 रहेगा ना साहब, ये नीचे नहीं आएगा, करेक्ट? मैं क्या बोल सकता हूँ, बॉस आपने जो डाला है वो डाला है ऐसे इसमें जिसका एवरेज रेट ऑफ रिटर्न इज प्रॉब्ली 15%. In this financial year, it has given you 40%, correct? You chose to put into this asset, correct, all the money. Now you are coming back worrying whether 140 will be 140. How can we give that kind of a guarantee, right? So these disorders or the anxiety also happens not only at a loss, it also happens when you make disproportionate profit. You cannot live with that profit of 40%. It gives you sleepless nights. You keep thinking कि वो 40 रहेगा या 38 होगा, मैं बाहर जाऊं या मैं अंदर रहूं. And this is exactly what we call as a tolerance. If you don't have a tolerance as a client, it is very, very important that you align with your natural tolerance level of 50-50 rather than going in something which puts you in a different slot. It can give you a disproportionate loss. It can give you a disproportionate profit. You are going to come out disappointed for sure. There is no doubt about it. In my career since I understand the risk tolerance for the last, I think from 2008, we started understanding when I was in Boston, and we were speaking with the person who actually had created this. I met back in 2011 in San Diego, and we were again speaking the same topic. And that point of time I realized is that there is a lot of merit in doing a tolerance. Don't do risk tolerance because SEBI is telling you. Do risk tolerance because you want to unlock the financial DNA. That lock you have to unlock of the client of how much he can stomach. And that's only possible through a risk profiling tool, which is a licensed tool. It doesn't happen from a Google free tool and all that, right? If you do it rightly. Don't do it otherwise, it just doesn't make sense. But when you do it, I am 101% sure we don't have anxiety moments. When market crashes, we don't have a single call in our office who tells us, sir, abhi kya kare, market gira hai. Nothing doing. There is no call which comes to us. And there we feel that financial DNA, if interpreted correctly, works fabulously well. And this is not about retail clients, please. This is also about people at board level. We have clients at board level who also understand the importance of a tolerance, and they stay and stick around the tolerance. And whether it is India Wealth, whether it is Global Wealth, this exercise is extremely powerful. I can vouch for it for you all, that if you do start doing it, even understanding a little more deeper into it, you will understand the power of this entire framework of planning. Risk capacity. Please understand, risk tolerance. I will have a high risk tolerance. That doesn't mean I have a capacity. My capacity will only come from my income, my family unit. If I have one single income and 3 dependents, my capacity is constrained. If I have 2 people earning and 1 dependent, my capacity is far better. So the capacity is a function of your life stage. It's a function of your family unit. It's a function of which occupation you are. It's a function of which industry you come from. Okay, it depends on many things, correct? In terms of cyclicality of industries, etc. Your capacity might be up and down. It might be stable. So the risk tolerance and risk capacity can be very different. Sometimes we feel that risk tolerance is high, meaning the person can take a lot of risk. Yes, but he doesn't have the capacity, right? Which is basically we call an ability to take a risk. He is not capable to take a risk because he doesn't have a capacity. He doesn't have enough resources to take a risk. If he loses the money, he loses it. That's it. And the third is in terms of the understanding the risk. So there are again 2-3 things we need to understand: financial risk, physical risk, and a social risk. Okay, I can be a great equity guy who can pick up stocks well. This is my financial acumen, my financial risk tolerance is high. But I may not do bungee jumping. I will not go and do I will not take physical risk and do bungee jumping. Okay. Or there may be a person whom you meet, or a client, he might be doing bungee jumping. I say, okay, I like the thrill. I like jumping from X feet, Y feet, Z feet. And I've been doing this. Look at these videos, look at these photos. But if you look at a tolerance and do a tolerance test, you might find he doesn't have a financial tolerance. He might have a lesser tolerance. That doesn't, so these are all two different, completely different things in terms of, because you can take a physical risk doesn't mean you can take a financial risk. Because you take a financial risk doesn't mean you can take a physical risk, and so on and so forth. Social risk, because I can take a physical risk but not take a financial risk, I may also not be able to take a social risk. So I cannot drink and come home, correct? Because I feel, okay, what the society will say, that's a social risk. Or sometimes I'm okay saying that, okay, I'm drinking with my own money, so it's okay. It's okay to kind of do it, but I may still not take financial risks in the markets. So human being is very complex animal, and people say human being is rational, but I think human being is irrational. Human being is emotional. There are a lot of biases. I'll give you a very good example. Recently, I was having a conversation with one of a client, and he's a managing director of one of a listed company in India. In the morning, 9 o'clock, I was having a conversation on the same topic about money. And he's a very humble guy. And of course, having a CTC of few crores, he's still very humble, very decent, etc. So I was seeing one of my friend in the same batchmate of IIM Ahmedabad. I met him at the airport and I saw that he was wearing a watch, and I said, wow, I mean, you're kind of wearing a branded watch, Rolex, etc. So he said, yeah. I mean, this is something which I like doing, and Louis Vuitton bag and branded shoes and all that. He said, okay, boss, what is the value of this watch? He said, 25 lakhs. So my client said, oh, boss, 25 lakhs watch? I mean, finally, क्या करने वाला है वो watch? ये तो टाइम ही दिखाने वाला है. आपके केस में मेरे वॉच में 12 बजने वाला है, आपके वॉच में 12 बजने वाला है. So what is that so different what you are talking about? So look at the context setting which happens in the mind of that person who told him. This person told my client that, it is not the time in the watch for which I am wearing the watch. जो घड़ी में पहनता हूं, ये टाइम तो सेम दिखाता है, बट मेरा टाइम कैसे चल रहा है, जो मैं घड़ी पहनता है उसके ऊपर से समझ में आता है लोगों को. So look at the context. The context is very different in terms of how he is wired. Now this person, which my client was also sharing, that he lost jobs twice. He has a child with a Down syndrome. Okay. From a standpoint of wealth, liquidity is very less. A lot of real estate investments happen. No liquidity much. And kind of with so much of spend in the family, there is not much which remains at the end. So ultimately, look at the wiring which that person would have done. He's saying that this watch will tell other people that mera time kaise chal raha hai life mein, versus the context of saying that dono gade mein same time dikh raha hai. So do you think these people are nothing but there is some kind of a disorder in the mind which will not allow the person to really create wealth? There is something which is triggering in a different way. And therefore, the 9th point is a willingness to take a risk. So some people may take a risk because they don't have the money. Some people may take a risk because they have a lot of money. It can also be extremes. ऐसा नहीं है कि जिसके पास बहुत पैसा है वही रिस्क लेगा. Actually उल्टा भी हो सकता है, जिसके पास कुछ भी नहीं है वो ज्यादा रिस्क लेगा वो बनाने के लिए. And if he misses the point of risk tolerance, he might end up destructing more. And you will find a lot of people having loans, credit cards, and all this stuff. I had met a chartered accountant who were having credit cards. A chartered accountant not understanding the interest calculation Very unlikely, right? He will understand that very well. You know, he's not a lay person. But a person who gets into that spiral of having liability and spending, what is this? This is nothing but a disorder in your mind in terms of how you behave. Now, through financial planning process, there are certain things or techniques which are used to help this process minimize this disorder so that the wealth start creating and a good behavior starts coming in. And we have a lot of cases where CFOs also have some behavioral disorders and they acknowledge it. Boss, I understand. Boss, I'm a finance guy. I run a company today, but I still feel that this is something wrong inside. And we, from a planning perspective, we make sure we surface that, we make the person understand, acknowledge it, put a structure in place, make sure that there is a nudge and the behavior starts changing. So wealth creation in my mind is all about behavior. It is nothing else. If you have a good behavior, you create wealth. If you have a bad behavior, you destruct wealth. Ultimately, whether your legacy, you are born with a silver spoon, you're born in a jhopda, it doesn't matter. It is here and the behavior and the way you are processed. And maybe as planners, we help them to put a structure in place, which will help them to kind of steer them in the right direction. Let me take you through the designing of practice. That now you know that what goes into wealth creation and how wealth creation, we look at it from a redefining perspective. Let's look at how you design your practice, right? And there are a couple of things which we do for designing practices. As I said, there are things which we need to do and some process we have to follow to design a practice. And it just doesn't happen like that. We have to think about it. So first is that wealth creation is not numbers, it is beyond numbers. There is something behind, a person behind, his behavior behind, his family unit behind, okay, his aspiration behind, the way he was brought up in life, his childhood behind, which is all a kind of a belpuri, which is actually triggering some actions. So we need to go beyond numbers. Point number one. Techniques to go beyond numbers. It is not आपके पास बैंक में कितना पैसा पड़ा है, आपका income कितना है. These are all static numbers. Fine, we understand those, right? But go beyond numbers. It will help you to design your practice better, understand the person behind. The psychology part is very, very critical in a financial planning practice because finally you're working with a person who has these disorders, a human being who is not rational. He might be educated, he might be a CFA, he might be IIM Ahmedabad, etc., etc. This is education, but education doesn't guarantee that you are rational. Okay, it sometimes brings a lot of ego. It might bring a lot of overconfidence. It might create a lot of decisions which are taken recklessly, and you end up destructing wealth. And as I said, the financial DNA, getting that is very, 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 very important because it is very difficult to judge when we are talking with a person, but it's very easy if you run in through the process. You understand from a profiling tool that, yeah, this is where the person is. Talk with him, understand from him what he wants to say, understand his story behind, because his story and the questions and the answers which he has given on the story is actually going to create a lot of understanding for the client himself as far as for the advisor in terms of how to kind of steer it together. Setting expectations, because there are so many times we have seen is that clients say, nahi, wo humne to usme bola tha that 10% loss, beyond that I cannot, but actually ऐसा कुछ है नहीं. तो हम उनको बोलते हैं, सर आप एक काम क्यों नहीं करते, आप उसको चेंज क्यों नहीं करते, आपके रिप्लाई को क्यों नहीं आप चेंज करते, आपने जब ये बोला है 10% लॉस के बियॉन्ड मुझे नहीं चलेगा, आप उसको चेंज करो, हम मानेंगे. करेक्ट. आप जो बोल रहे हैं कि मुझे इस तरह से पोर्टफोलियो चाहिए, मुझे लॉस 10% के बियॉन्ड नहीं चाहिए, बट मुझे 80% इक्विटी पोर्टफोलियो चाहिए, आप चेंज करो उसमें से एक. आइदर यू गो टू अ लोअर पोर्टफोलियो or equity portfolio, or you probably change your answer of 10%. The client mostly have not agreed to that. They are saying, no. Beyond 10% nahi chalega. At that point of time, you also need to say, no. We cannot move ahead of this. This is a max limit in which you can get your allocations. Beyond that, we will not be able to go. And therefore, the conversation goes up to again a return. Sir, return kitna aega because I am putting less here. So that is a point or a time to actually crack out the news is that, boss, return is a byproduct of how much risk you take, and your risk is a byproduct of how much tolerance you have internally. If you don't have a tolerance, you will kind of have anxiety. It is like you're sitting in a car where the speed of 100 kilometer per hour is good with you. But if I take you at 200 kilometer per hour, there'll be thrill. But at the same time, you'll feel ki, boss, I will end up meeting an accident very soon. So if you are going to then tell the person that, okay, mera accident hoga kya 100 times, that's not going to solve the problem. You decrease your speed. Increasing the speed and not having an accident, two ideal way to handle it. So make sure is that your expectation settings are done very, very rightly. Sometimes HNI, ultra HNI ke samne kabhi dar lagta hai. And in fact, I was speaking in an Ahmedabad association a couple of years back, where advisors from Ahmedabad had, actually advisors from Gujarat had come, okay, to Ahmedabad to understand this risk profiling. And initially the body language was कि क्या इसमें से क्या होगा, इसमें से क्या निकलता है. Finally, client बोलेगा वो हमको करना पड़ता है. You won't believe. End of the session, after 2.5 hours, they realized the power. In fact, they said, sir, we want you to be again here. We want to understand more deeper because I think what you are saying is right. Okay. मैंने उनको ये भी बोला, आपको कभी HNI को फोन करना है और आपको कुछ ऐसा लग रहा है, आप मुझे फोन कीजिए. I'll guide you how to tackle. Don't worry. Don't worry कि इनके पास 10 करोड़ है या 50 करोड़ है. Absolutely nothing to worry about it. You have to be very confident when you are advising. If you are doing it right, your body language should say that, not yes sir, yes sir. इस तरह का हम नहीं कर सकते. So if you are putting that expectation setting right, believe me, your life is set, because nobody will call you when things go out of hand. You will not have a single phone call coming on your mobile or people or calling and abusing, saying ये क्या हुआ, मैंने आपको बोला था. ये सब झंझट ही नहीं होगा. We have a very resilient practice. We don't have people calling every time in the office what happens, because they understand the power of this. And believe me, this just works wonderfully. Sign off, get a sign off from them, get them agreed. Of course, we need to sign because it's a SEBI regulation, but I believe that signing off is very important. You agree on a 40% equity, 50% equity, agree on that on a piece of paper, agree on this is the downside risk, make them agree, have a sign off. That's a very powerful tool. In case they change mind, show them the paper. They again come back saying that, Nani, I now remember what you had said. Let us continue the same thing. A couple of times clients did violate this, and I still know that we had created a what you call a declaration, right? Because we say that, okay, if you're moving from 40 equity to 70 equity, please give a declaration, because we have explained you all the risk. If you are still hell-bent on doing it, please give a declaration of 70-30. Believe me, they gave a declaration. After 6 months, they come back saying that, no, sir, we need to withdraw the declaration. We have understood what you were trying to say. Please remove. We don't have today a single declaration of a client. You can check with my team. We don't have a single declaration of a client today who is given a declaration saying that please violate my risk profile. Not a single declaration. And that works beautifully. Please believe this, start understanding this a little more in detail. There is a website known as riskprofiling.com. It has fabulous resources. Read it. I mean, if you read those resources, you will start understanding exactly what I'm trying to tell you. Maybe you will understand it far better because you are all practitioners in some way. Putting framework from a standpoint of doing the planning process, very, very important. You gather the data, you understand the clarifications. So there are 3 parts again. You do the risk profiling, you gather the data, you do the clarifications, understand the qualitative side of the person, right? Value system. I'll give you an example of a value system, what we do. There are clients who have come from a very humble background. today they might be CEOs or managing directors of very large companies having large CTCs. I've seen two types of clients. One is that one set of clients where, you know, this education, etc., comes into picture in terms of sending children abroad. One set of clients with this kind of capacity would tell me that, you know what, my father and my mother used to work in an RBI or a bank. We had very little money in life to really splurge on things. And we came up in life a very hard way. And today I am because I was actually put through the process. And because I was put through this kind of a process, I also want my children to follow the same process. Let them also slog. Let them also do. Let them get admission on merits. Let them do. Let them understand the importance of money. I've seen one parent, similar parents of this group talking this way, right? Other set of the value system is that same background, right? Humble background, going through the grind, exactly the same. But they have a different outlook. They're saying, boss, jo mujhe mila nahi life mein, I want to give it to my children. I want to spend as much as possible on their education and not compromise or anything, not take a loan or make them pay or all that, because I have gone through that. I don't want my children to go through it. Now, see, look here. These are value systems. You cannot possibly sit and discuss, right? It's your value system. That's fine. We respect that, right? So based on the value system, how do you create a plan is more important. We are not here sitting to judge a value system. Ye galat hai, ye correct hai, ye wrong hai. So we don't judge a value system. We judge the behavior. If the behavior disorder is there, then we kind of probably ask the right questions. If value system is clear, कि हम ये करेंगे, ये नहीं करेंगे, this is me, this is not me, me and my wife, we have decided. All this is a value system. Respect the value system of the person. Don't put your values in that. Also from a risk tolerance, don't put your risk tolerance on the client. नहीं तो सब portfolios तो same दिखने लगेंगे. Correct? अगर मेरा risk tolerance 70 equity 30 debt है, मेरे सब clients का 70 equity 30 debt दिखने लगेगा. Correct? So उसमें problem क्या होगा इस जो clients का 30 equity 70 debt है, वो मुझे हर बार फोन करके बोलेगा, sir, am I in good hands? And I will tell him, don't worry, you are in good hands. I have 18 years of experience. Again, he will forget it. Again, he will call me back saying that, sir, ये सब ठीक है ना, market गिरेगा नहीं ना. Doesn't work like that. Because he's working on my risk profile, whereas I have kind of templatized my risk profile on his wealth and saying that, no, you follow, don't worry, I'm there. I will take you through the roller coaster ride. Somebody who is 90 equity 10 debt, probably I have to respect that risk profile because that person can take risk, I cannot take a risk. So please respect the risk tolerance. Please respect the value system of the client. And this is where it creates a powerful mix of things which put the planning process in action. Don't compromise. Whenever somebody is asking for wrong things, please educate them because there's nothing we can do about it. Risk aayega, return aayega, nahi bhi aayega. If you take a wrong risk, you may lose your shirt also. I may lose my coat also. If you take a wrong risk, ऐसा कोई मतलब रूल नहीं है कि रिस्क लिया मतलब आपको मिलेगा, ऐसा कुछ रूल नहीं है, right? This is all rubbish in terms of market information that if you don't take risk you will not make money, ऐसा कुछ है नहीं. If you take wrong risk you will lose your shirt, you will lose your pant. So take risks, understand risk, don't take risk blindly. Make sure that you are able to guide the clients properly. Give them adequate warning, right? Written warning at times, right? And fire them if required. We have also been able to fire clients because there are, what I believe as a philosophy is that for every client there is an advisor today in this world, and for every advisor there is a client in this world. So ऐसे कुछ नहीं कि 2 client बाहर गए तो आपके पास आएंगे नहीं. In fact, if you kind of help people to move out of the system which cannot align with your philosophy, and that's okay. It's not compulsory to accept your philosophy. Let them find an advisor who will align with the philosophy. But if the philosophy of the firm is compromised, हम ना घर के ना घाट के. We need to be very, very clear on the foundation, on the centerpiece of which clients we can work with, what type we can work with, where satisfaction we get, and of course, we earn money out of it, and we have to be profitable. There's no doubt about it. Learn to say no, or sometimes not possible, and clients respect. We have taken this route, and clients respect, and they say no. Definitely, I think we agree. And you will see a lot of wealth management outfits saying that no, yes sir, I'm karenge. And we say, sir, no, this is not possible. What you're doing is wrong. This is not the way to handle it. Please understand. And they respect. They respect what you say. They don't sit and argue with you. So I think those are good behaviors, where not because they agree with you, because they understand it is good for them. It is not because they have to agree with whatever I say. It is very clear that it is good for them, and they are also logical enough to understand that it is something which is coming from their own responses, and therefore doing something which is detrimental to the family unit, family wealth, is not something which I do. So we manage family offices as well, which manage about 100 odd crores of wealth with a single client. And that's what role we play, right? We tell clients that this is not possible, and you have to be able to put your foot down and say, and they respect you for that. And that's exactly comes a power for planning. And therefore I said a financial planning process is a very, very powerful process in creating wealth creation, wealth nurturing, and wealth sustenance. Let me share with you the impact we have on clients' life, right? And this is the last slide, and we'll open the floor for FAQs. Let the purpose surface. Ask the client what is really the purpose. Is the shared purpose? Is the family in alignment? पैसा कमाना is outcome. क्यों कमाना is a purpose. किस लिए कमाना? आप क्या करोगे पैसे का? आप क्या करने वाले हो? So, I mean, it is like food without salt. It doesn't taste good. So, wealth for the sake of wealth doesn't mean anything. It has to have a purpose. So, even at larger clients, even 100 crore plus clients, we put a purpose in place, because पर पर्पस के बिना वो मुझे बोलेगा कि बॉस मेरा अभी 100 करोड़ है, कल मुझे 150 करोड़, ये पर्पस नहीं है बॉस. पर्पस है what really you want in life, what you want to do really, right? You have a legacy, you want to hand over wealth. What is it? Is your family educated? Are they financially savvy? Or you are in the process of creating, they are in the process of destructing wealth? This is not. So please get into the deeper and deeper to understand the purpose. And once the purpose surfaces, it's like something which puts the client in a very confident driving seat, because then we all know what we are doing. Let the destination be clear. Traveling, you sit in an aircraft, you take off, right? You never take off without a destination. You know, I'm going from Bombay to Delhi, I'm going from Chennai to Ahmedabad, right? It is not like you sit in an aircraft and just say, okay, boss, ab bhagao. ऐसा नहीं होता है. There has to be a direction, and the direction depends on the purpose. If the purpose is clear, the direction is clear, then you kind of get into the speed. Imagine in Chennai, you lift an aircraft from the runway and have a 10-degree angle, in the way you can kind of turn the aircraft. 10-degree left, you will reach Bombay, and 10-degree here, you will reach probably Jaipur. So a 10-degree variance can actually change the entire destination itself. So it is very important to understand where I am going, and then you understand the altitude. Boss, if I have to fly from Chennai to Jaipur, boss, I can fly at 40,000 feet. That's okay. But if I have to kind of go from a very short destination of 100 kilometers, I may not go at 50,000 feet, right? I may have to fly at about 8,000 feet. So I need to kind of land at the right destination. Therefore, cruising at the right altitude, checking the progress at various points of time when you are doing the planning, understanding that whether you are driving, there'll be a lot of wind, there'll be a lot of air pockets, there'll be a lot of disturbances, turbulence. But does that mean that you will not reach your destination? No, you have to reach your destination. So therefore, if course corrections have to happen, they have to happen. You have to monitor the progress. You have to look at it. Thought process changes. 5 साल पहले मैं आपको मिलता था और 5 साल अभी मैं मिल रहा हूँ, 5 साल बाद आपको मिल रहा हूँ. Believe me, if I'm meeting Vikas 5 years prior, 5 years from today, Vikas is going to be a different person. Sandeep Raichura is going to be a different person. Though they may look similar, but they are not the same Vikas and same Sandeep. They are different because the thought process has undergone a change. And because the thought process has undergone a change, I will have to change the altitude. I have to change the progress route. I have to kind of remap everything and make sure that they are able to land their aircraft at the right destination. I should be able to see the runway. I cannot see the runway at 50,000 feet, but I can see the runway at 2,000, 3,000 feet, and then I can prepare for landing, and then I can land safely. So this is all science. This is all a process, a methodical one. And if you take even an example of an aircraft and the takeoff and the landing, you will understand what I'm saying, right? There is a compass, you have to move in a direction, there is a purpose, and you have to land safely. So what we do essentially through planning, we make sure that every year we actually complete or fulfill about 50 goals a year for clients. For different cases, there are marriages, there are education, there are job losses sometimes, there are different things which happen. And we have to kind of make sure that in this turbulence, we reach the destination in time through the planning process. And that's exactly what we do. So one of the case studies what we had, which we had filed in Chicago, was a divorcee. She's working for a large company, and 2 children who are in the college, and very difficult situation where a lot of real estate, lot of loans, very difficult having such a large salary, even there is no saving. And we had to kind of work with her very closely, understand from her in terms of very logical, and I am Ahmedabad, pedigree, very logical understanding, but not able to solve her own problem of finance. We were able to kind of bring her out of that, help her understand what she needs to do, in fact. And that actually, when we had filed this case study, okay, this was a case study which was a very difficult case study in terms of solving the problem, because this was not money problem, this was behavior problem, this was life stage problem, this was in a way a problem which probably we shouldn't have in life in terms of divorcing, etc. Life was unfair. In these circumstances, how do you steer the client, right, in terms of this? And that actually helped us to actually win this particular award. Even 2019, where we were working with a case who was a cancer survivor, very, very difficult to kind of handle the emotions, handle the financial well-being of the client, make sure the client understands, steer him properly from that. And that helped us also to kind of get we were the first in Asia Pacific and from India as well in terms of getting this particular award. So I think I'm very passionate about this subject of planning. I can talk, I think I can talk more hours if given, but I think I need to kind of stop now and open the floor for
it was a great insight which I got, Vivek ji. The audience, if you have questions, किसी के पास में कोई सवाल है, any questions to ask Vivek ji, please type the question in the chat box. We will take some questions. Particularly, some of the things that touched my heart, Vivek ji, is that the sign-off part of it, which is so important in our financial industry. Many a times the customers get charmed, or they get convinced by some aspect of our company, but in their internal minds, and their tolerance and their attitude is something different. So the sign-off part of it is, I think, is something that was really a takeaway for me. And I don't think that it's done very, very meticulously, like you mentioned. in our industry, in our part of the world. That's what separates the men from the boys. And team, if you all have any questions, किसी को कोई सवाल है financial planning में, कोई दिक्कत आई है या कुछ? Okay, so we have some first question. Dhiren Bhai has asked, I like the approach focusing on the mindset and psychological aspect. Can you elaborate more on this? How do you approach and the tools and techniques you used?
Yeah.
G, if you can take that, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I think thank you for this question. And Dhiren Bhai, see, one of the tool which I already mentioned to you, that tool is known as Phenometrica. Okay, this is a tool which is a licensed tool. It's a paid tool. It was created in Australia, South Wales, by a team of psychologists. A very powerful tool in terms of unlocking the risk tolerance of a client or an individual. The more you go into it, you'll fall in love with that tool for sure. I can bet on it. If you understand more on that, that is a very powerful technique. I think from 2011 to 2021, 10 years, you're following that one technique for sure. The second technique is in terms of putting the client through a process whereby you ask them to fill up a certain questionnaire, correct? Which is essentially, there are two parts in it. One is the quantitative part and one is the qualitative part. The quantitative part helps them to put the numbers, give the data to us. That helps them to understand how organized they are. At various points of time, they struggle. They struggle to give the data. It takes about a month for them to give a data. From that itself, you know that the client is unorganized. The unorganized piece is here, mind. The mind is unorganized, and therefore you don't see the data often very quickly. And the third is the qualitative aspect, which I mentioned, again, a technique which we call as a wiser technique. A wiser technique is nothing but you understand the values, of the client. You kind of probe into it. You understand, you again connect the tolerance, and there are some stories which unlock, and therefore you try to understand the value and ask the client to unlock their values. And then there are other things in terms of the client itself creates and tells you about the obstacles. ऐसे नहीं है कि client को पता नहीं होता है. Client को पता होता है. It just needs a structure. Okay. So importance. So I is importance, right? The importance of the goals. Which goal is important than the other goal? How do you fight within the goals and say this is most important, this is least important, right? The resources which are available.
The second question is, what should be the ideal time interval for portfolio review?
Portfolio review ideally should be done at least once in a quarter. Okay, which we look at from because see, industry practices is either annually or half yearly, but we feel is that to give justice and to see and monitor once a quarter actually gives a good insight into what is really happening into the portfolio, some course corrections, etc., what we need to do. And at times you can just kind of move it to kind of once in 4 months, maybe 3 times a year. But I would still prefer 4 times a year. Have a look at it, ask the right questions, because you are in a debt market, equity market, alternate assets, etc. Important to have a look at it. So we have an internal schedule where we look at it.
So, friends, this was a very elaborate session by our very valuable partner. And I do request and invite you all that if you all feel like asking any more further questions, do write to me or plbd@plindia.com, and we shall, answer the question. Okay, there is one question that's come from one of my another very nice partner, SR Wealth. Is it possible to partner with your firm for comprehensive financial planning report for prospective clients who only want financial planning done on B2B basis, as authorized partners are essentially barred by SEBI to offer financial planning? If yes, will it be possible to white label the same? So Vivek ji, if somebody wants to partner with you professionally,
Yeah. So we are in the process of looking into the regulations and understanding, and because regulation becomes the centerpiece for the decisions. Okay, so our team is looking into that factor because there are some such kind of offers have come definitely. Correct. We are working on that to kind of understand that what are the legalities involved, not for getting together, but it is more to understand from a SEBI perspective what are the things we need to do. Okay, and what kind of things we need to complete and hand over to kind of things. But we will come back on this. I'll be speaking with Vikas around this if something like this can be offered as well.
definitely, I will be happy to connect. And do write to us, friends. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. I guess I got one more question. Okay, it's a thanks. Okay, so okay. So yes, Dhiren Bhai is still you're still yes, he's a SEBI registered advisor, which is there also. So thank you so much, Vivek ji.
Thank
And
you.
if I get any more questions, I'll definitely pass it back to you. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart on behalf of Prabhudas Liladhar. And thank you all my team and participants. Thank you so much.
Thank you, friends, and all the best. I hope these sessions open up more minds. I mean, that will mean that there is a lot of impact which has happened.
Definitely.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Signing off.